Hello and welcome to the Schapera Show, where Viv and Neil explore this big adventure called life. Our guest today is a speaker, healer, and visionary guide who has traveled an extremely difficult journey and has much to share on the topic. I'm glad to introduce you to Cathleen Elle, author of the Amazon International bestseller, Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. Welcome, Kathleen. Thank you for joining us here on the show today.
Thank you, Vivien. So good to be here.
Kathleen, I wonder if you'd be willing to tell us in a nutshell about your book and your work.
Of course. I'm a transformational speaker, a certified master coach and healer, visionary guide, and as you mentioned, I'm also the author of a book called Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. And I wrote that book because after experiencing the tragic loss of my son to suicide, I uncovered really a powerful sense of self and a connection to the divine that motivated me to redesign my own life and to guide others to do the same.
Oh, so now you are helping others with this process of sudden loss.
Yes, that's correct. My book is particularly it's a practical guide for those struggling with loss of any kind, not just a child, and has become an award-winning #1 international bestseller.
Congratulations, Kathleen. I know that's not an easy accomplishment, and it means you're reaching a lot of people. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, I think it's wonderful because I personally know this journey of loss and how complex it is. But before we discuss that, I wanted to ask you, these pioneering and leadership capacities that you have, they don't come out of nowhere. What were you doing before this path presented itself to you?
Indeed, they did not come out of nowhere. Not only have I delved deeply into my journey of healing, and today I think it's just more of allowing, I've also seen and been a leader in politics. I served more than 25 years in government, including being a legislator before I was 30 years old. I sat on the Judiciary and Appropriations Committee despite no college education. I worked for the governor as the Director of Housing and Transportation and Homelessness and as a Legislative Affairs for the Agency of Human Services. And I was the chair of the Interagency Council on Homelessness that coordinates all the agencies within the administration that touches the issue. So I became the face of the largest commercial contractors association in the state of Vermont, and I'm the one that actually channeled the name civil unions for gay rights and responsibilities when we were writing the law in 2000. And when working for the governor, I did get my college education, and I got my bachelor's in political science, business and public administration. And, you know, I did that because I felt like I was being held back without a college degree, and I needed to get the degree to advance in the administration.
So you were very committed to your career. Obviously something happened to put you on a different path.
Yes, indeed. That's very true. When I was the executive at AGC, the Contractors Association, I had just started at the end of 2009 in the position, and my son took his life in 2010. So life changed drastically.
What happened? What was your son's name and what happened?
Yeah. Logan is my son's name, and my daughter's name is Ashley. Logan had struggled for years with his emotional health, and he had attempted suicide one other time when he was a teenager. So there were warning signs, and we did everything we could for him as much as we could. Anything I knew to do, I did. And he turned to substances, particularly marijuana, to mask his pain. And yet it didn't work for him. Just like alcohol doesn't work for some people, marijuana didn't work for him. He ended up seeing some dark visions, and he struggled. We struggled. And there were ups and downs as a teenage boy or through his teenage years. And about a month before Logan took his life, he said that he was going to move to his dad's in South Carolina, and we lived in Vermont. We got in a little disagreement about what occurred around that conversation, and he was angry at me. And his last words to me were, "I'll see you in another 20 years." So he ended up going to my parents for a couple of weeks, and a couple weeks later, he moved to his dad's. And when I was in the board meeting, I found out he took his life. And that board meeting was all-absorbing because the organization I had just taken leadership in had many challenges that it was facing, and I was presenting a plan to come out of that. And so I was completely wrapped up into that in that board meeting. And even though I was wrapped up in the board meeting, I still had that little thought in my head, I should call Logan. And then I just shoved it aside because I was so involved in that meeting. And as I was in the meeting, I was definitely getting some calls on my cell phone. My mom kept calling, my dad kept calling, or my mom and some other people kept calling. My dad did not. And I knew that probably something had happened to my father, but I had to complete the board meeting before I got done. And I happened to look out the window in the meeting, and I had a friend, a colleague of mine, walking up the sidewalk, and the employee opened my door and pulled me out, and I walked into my office, and that's where I knew that my son had taken his life just by the look on her face. She didn't even have to open her mouth, but I heard the word saying, "Logan committed suicide." And I just dropped to my knees and screamed, and I don't remember much other than anything that mattered before that moment no longer mattered to me. So I thought that was the worst. That's the worst thing that could ever happen. So I couldn't imagine anything to be any worse than that. All I could feel was numbness and disbelief. And about a month after that, I met with a medium, and she had said that there was something that I didn't know in the police records, and I should get the police report. So that gave me a little bit of hope, because I thought maybe that it could have been an accident, that Logan actually didn't die by suicide. And I called, and the responding officer actually answered the phone, and I had to push a lot, and, I really had to be aggressive because he was fighting back with me. He was pretty rude and short with me, and I said, "How do you know it was a suicide?" And he screamed back at me and said, "Because of the note." And I hadn't known that there was a note. And what was included in the note is that he didn't want me at the service. And so just when I thought it was the worst thing in the world, I hit a new low. And a few months after that, I was just in this deep depression. I found myself laying on Logan's grave, begging and screaming and wishing whatever took my son, please take me too. And it was at that moment that something changed for me, because I heard this voice. My body became so calm, and I heard this voice say, "If this happened in your life, you're meant to do something with it. Now go do it." And so that's when I started to do things differently in my healing journey. And I ended up, realizing that there was actually a study done in Kentucky that showed that every suicide happens, that there's up to 135 people who are touched. And I found that to be true because of my experience. And, as a public face, it was pretty intense. So I found that I was floundering, and I knew that I couldn't continue like that, because I was so cloaked in sadness and anger and guilt and shame and blame, and it just weighted me down physically and emotionally. And so that's when I stepped into my healing journey differently, because what I had been doing was masking all of my pain with the doing, with the action. So then I started to step into my journey.
Words. These are such sacred words that you're sharing with us, and I'm just listening, and you're so honest. Your heart is open to share this story. It's so amazing to hear you speaking. What kind of things did you do? How did you begin?
Well, that's a great question, Vivien. I did a lot. I first, immediately I stepped into energy healing. I had a grief specialist. I went to mediums on a regular basis. I read self-help books and suicide books, and I spoke. I did everything there was to do for about a year, except for actually delving into the actual pain. And about a year afterwards, I went to a cognitive thought therapist, and it was definitely helping dealing with the grief of Logan, of the suicide itself, and the impact that it had on my life. But about my 5th year anniversary, I went back to this cognitive thought therapist, and I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel depressed. I feel numb. I still don't know how to feel love, even though I was in a great relationship. And I knew, she knew that I had some abuse as a kid. And so we took a little PTS quiz, post-traumatic stress quiz, and it found that I was high on the charts on experiencing post-traumatic stress. Not from my son's suicide, but from my childhood experience. Because the suicide cracked open every wall that I had on any experience that I hadn't really dealt with. So I enrolled in that post-traumatic stress program. It was a 15 to 18-week program. And it helped me realize that I had been creating stories that were just untrue. And there were stories based on my 18-month-old, my 3-year-old self, my 5-year-old self. And those programs were the limiting perspective of a child. For example, at 18 months, I was inappropriately touched by my father's father, and that was a script that I had in my mind, in my body, that's how I received love. And I also had that I was habitually seeking outside validation of my worthiness. In my adult life, I belonged to 3 different religions. I was baptized by 3 different religions. I was married 3 different times. Every time that I stepped into a new job, I advanced. It was never enough. So I would briefly feel a little better by taking that step ahead, but in the end, it was all about trying to prove my worth to everyone else, including myself. And with the new awarenesses I had, I needed to go internally to do my own healing and not seek outwardly on trying to put on some kind of mask or persona on the outside. So as I realized that I was, what was in my heart now was to work with people who had similar experiences. I left my job. I left my husband. I left my home state in 2018. I found a new path for my journey, and I entered into a year-long program with Jack Canfield on Train the Trainer. So it was a personal development program. And that's how I stepped into the Regenerating Images and Memory, RIM. It's a healing modality. And it's a multi-sensory technique that facilitates mental, physical, and spiritual transformation.
Regenerating Images in Memory, RIM. Can you explain RIM and how it works?
Absolutely. I love RIM because it's a modality that uses your body to go inward, to go into old experiences and create new awarenesses around those experiences. So you go in, you find the pain point, you get new information, or actually you receive and allow new information to flow through based on the process that we go through. So where you ultimately get a higher perspective. And so you're filling in the incomplete story, so where you're creating a new story in a cellular memory through the system. So when I was 3 or 4, my birth father came home, and he was an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic. He and my mom got into this big fight. He ultimately, screams he's going to end this for all of us. He's done. He goes to get his gun. So my mother knew that he was going to shoot us. So she brought us into the bathroom, my sister and I. She was 3 years older than me. And she put my sister and herself in the bathtub, and she put me between the toilet and the wall. And the story I created in that moment, as bullets were flying through the door, is that I wasn't worthy to be safe. I wasn't worthy to be loved. I was being abandoned because I was separate from my mother and my sister. And so, that story, he goes and reloads his gun. We get out the door. We drive up the road a little. My mom stops, and we hear the police come, so she decides to go back down. And I hear the cops say, we're going to have to take him away. And that there was like this sigh of like peace. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe. But then I hear my mom say, no, I'll just go in and see if he's passed out. If he's passed out, he'll be fine. He won't remember this. So not only did I feel abandoned the first time in being separate, but now I have the fear that not only is my father going to be taken to jail, but now my mother could end up dead because she's going back into a house that was not safe to begin with. So I anchored in yet another unworthy program. So through RIM, I was able to work through all that and create new stories around those things. I could see that my mother was actually scared that her children could be taken away because she had already lost a son. So she was afraid that her children were going to be taken away, so she was willing to be beat on a regular basis so she could keep her children safe. And so it was a whole different perspective from the resentment that I had with her.
And so it was RIM that helped you explore your preconceived notions and thoughts. This is what actually helped you change the stories.
Yes, exactly. RIM prepared me to see everything differently. It didn't have to be, I didn't have to be resentful and all those kinds of negative emotions, resentful, blaming, anxious, depressed. I didn't have to feel all that toward myself or toward my parents. I could understand from RIM how much more information is hidden in every experience. This was really a freeing feeling. A child's stories are only partial stories. RIM also prepared me for plant medicine.
Plant medicine. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, I'd be delighted to tell you more about that. I love the medicines, the indigenous medicines. When I was in the Canfield program, I heard about ayahuasca through Jack Canfield. I'd been called through it for the year. And at the end of 2018, I went to Costa Rica to experience ayahuasca. I was just called. It just kept coming up, and it just kept presenting itself. She kept presenting herself, and that's what plant medicine does. The plant medicine calls you, and you're being drawn to work with it because it's calling you. It keeps coming to you. It keeps being presented. So I sat with Mother Ayahuasca, Grandmother Ayahuasca. I've learned to listen and act on such messages, like the guidance from within. And so I went and sat 4 nights in a row with Mother Ayahuasca. Then I sat twice in 2019 with Grandmother Ayahuasca. And all of these experiences were just profound. And it wasn't just ayahuasca. I sat with Iboga and Bufo and Cambo and a number of medicines. The medicine breaks down barriers and just generated by your ego, our brain, generates stories from our past experiences. And the medicine breaks that all down so where you can have more of an experience of the truth, meaning you can actually experience the higher vibration of what people are responding to here on Earth. It felt like each time that I sat in medicine, the medicine pulled me another direction, another protection layer off of my heart. Medicine gave me
Kathleen,
awareness of generational pain.
Generational pain. Kathleen, this is really important information, and I know we're going to need to take a break soon. Before we do that, let's tell people how they can get hold of your book, and we'll give them the title again. So that and your book title, and then also your website, if we could just share that. And we'll come back to generational pain after the break.
Sounds great. Thank you. Yes, my book is Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. It is on Amazon. It's also on my website at Kathleen's with a C, and then Elle, it's E-L-L-E, and my website is CathleenElle.com.
Simple enough.
So you can get it either on my website or on Amazon.
Excellent. Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief by Cathleen Elle. Thank you, Kathleen. And everyone, you are listening to the Schapera Show, and our guest, Cathleen Elle, is sharing with us how she put herself and her life back together after her son's suicide. When we come back after the break, Kathleen is going to tell us more about plant medicine and her process and how she now helps others who face this terrible challenge. Thank you for joining us.
Imagine taking a journey with metaphysical teachers and spirit guides right in your own home. Well, now you can with Vivien Schapera's book, Everyday Magic. Everyday Magic helps you understand your life from new perspectives as it guides you to feel motivated to take control of your life and your future. Get Everyday Magic today at Amazon.com, or for more information, visit Schapera.com or call 513-891-8062. That's 513-891-8062.
VMware is a fresh perspective for virtualization on the cloud. Shaping the future, this all in one platform delivers virtual cloud service on any cloud. Visit our HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on VMware.
CrystalHealingTechniques.com is the place to learn crystal healing, and there's even some free courses and certification. CrystalHealingTechniques.com has courses from beginner to advanced, and you'll learn from a master crystal healer. Explore new and unique material as you learn from the amazing award-winning textbook, The Complete Guide to Crystal Surgery. So discover the world of healing through crystals at CrystalHealingTechniques.com. Visit CrystalHealingTechniques.com or call 513-891-8062.
If you're not in the U.S., listen up. SureTrader is one of the most trusted and reliable names in share trading. With 6-to-1 leverage and other perks, SureTrade is the best for penny stocks and day trades. To find out more, visit our advertiser page and click on the SureTrader banner.
If you like this program and you want to hear more of the Shaperas, then tune in to their YouTube channel called Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques. There's demos, meditations, interviews, and more on their YouTube channel, Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques. So relax, enjoy, and learn unique material as you watch the Shaperas in action. Visit today on YouTube, and remember that channel, Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques. Do it now. There's a respected metaphysical academy that's been around for over 22 years, and it's still going strong. If you're interested in energy healing, crystal healing, developing intuition, or shamanism, then the Four Winds Academy for the Healing Arts and Sciences is exactly right for you. With in-person and online classes and full certifications, their experienced teachers work with you and take an interest in your progress. To find out more, visit fourwindsacademy.org. That's the number 4windsacademy.org. Or call 513-891-8062.
Expanding your mind. HealthyLife.net.
Hello and welcome back to the Schapera Show. Our guest today is Cathleen Elle, author of Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. Kathleen is telling us how she reintegrated her life after her son's suicide and how she now helps others who are traveling this journey. We were just at the point of healing generational pain, Kathleen. Can you tell us more about that? can you tell us about the generational pain in your own family and what happened once you were using plant medicine?
Definitely. Thank you. The medicine gave me awareness of my own generational pain with my mom and my grandmother. There's one journey that I did that I went through some deep grief in our lineage. 3 generations of losing our only sons, my grandmother, my mom, and myself. My gran lost her only son out of wedlock. My mom to SIDS. My brother died by SIDS when she was pregnant for me. And then I lost my only son to suicide. So all 3 were sudden and unexpected, and we only had that one son. And in this journey, it was just remarkable, because as I was journeying through with Mother Aya, the music came in, the shamans, the environment, and it just brought it all together. So where I was able to process with the medicine and the shamans, the experience, process all of that suffering that was hidden in their selves and their souls. And so I was able to clear that energy with Mother Aya. We were. So where it ended any of that grief, that unnecessary suffering, it ended it and completed that contract. So my daughter no longer has to ever worry about that again. I completed that generational trauma through Mother Ayahuasca. It's freeing. The power of medicine is real.
Oh, I'm just in awe of your story, Kathleen. So powerful and with a lot of personal meaning as well, because my mother lost her son and her firstborn child, her son, and then the same happened to me. And so I know what you're talking about. I know how this goes. And I wondered, Kathleen, do you believe that once someone dies, they are no longer? Is there ever any real hope for such a deep grief of losing a child?
I absolutely do not believe that they really die. They're no longer. Energy doesn't die. We do grieve the physical loss, their physical presence, because that is a loss. And we can learn how to re-engage with their energetic presence if we actually are willing to allow the emotions to flow through and to be in flow with the experiences that we're having now. The truth is that our loved ones are never really gone. We get to form a new relationship with their energetic presence. All the experiences that we have in this life has a pearl within the oyster. Every one of them, no matter how traumatic, no matter how difficult it is, the experiences are guiding posts. We get to use them to see them from a new perspective and tap into the infinite possibilities of what could really come from them. Yes, there's pain and there's joy. And from that pain, we can walk through, create this new energy within ourselves and share that with the world. We have to step into the pain and face the situation and then recreate the new story with the new information we get from stepping into that pain. We have to go in and not mask it on outward patterns.
I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking, yeah, we have to listen to our stories. We have to change them, because we script ourselves with these stories. So if we believe them, we're going to get more of the same in the world and in ourselves.
Yeah, and the question is always, is this true? Is this mine?
That's right. Yeah.
Is this true? Is this mine? And your soul will answer you quickly.
Yes, yes. So, Kathleen, do you work one-on-one or in groups?
Yes, both. I provide personalized one-on-one support. I have a virtual and in-person group sessions. And I've just do some transformational retreats for parents who have experienced loss. I'm also preparing in the near future a retreat for siblings who have lost. And I also am a speaker inspiring audiences on topics such as suicide prevention, grief, and self-discovery.
So then I don't want to miss this opportunity to ask you, do you have a retreat or workshop coming up?
I do. I have a retreat coming up starting in September. It's a 6-month program, meeting throughout the 6 months virtually and one-on-one. So you'll be meeting in a group, and then you'll have one-on-one sessions with then we'll have expert sharing as well. And midstream, about 4 months into it, we'll have a retreat in Ecuador that will include ayahuasca and some soul rediscovery journeys. And then we'll have 2 more months of integration thereafter. Because the medicine ceremonies are important, yet the integration thereafter is just as important.
I'm so glad you said that, because so many times people go to retreats and weekend workshops, and then they're left on the edge of the cliff with their lives all changed and altered, but no support coming up afterwards. So that's a good structure. And no one has to take the ayahuasca if that's not what they want. They could still attend, couldn't they?
Yes, they could. Yes, they could.
Yeah.
And it's also a group energy. So we, part of the process in order to actually even sign up is to have an interview with me and my co-facilitator. So where it's clear at the beginning, what the process is, and ayahuasca is actually encouraged. So if you're not interested at all in ayahuasca but want some grief support, definitely connect with me anyways.
Yes, exactly. There's other ways to do it. Okay, and what do you include in your process?
Oh, well, it's when it's one-on-one, it is it's very tailored to the individual, so I allow myself to be guided. And so I'll use RIM, oracle cards, energy healing, Akashic records, guidance, I'm a master coach, so my coaching process. And so I use all forms of modalities that I've experienced and become certified in, based on the experiences that I've had in my journey. So it is individually tailored on the one-on-one, and then in groups we do, group processing with other group experiences.
Kathleen, do you have any special guiding words that you can share with our listeners? You've got so much experience here. You've seen so much. You've read so much. You've researched so much. Have you got anything you can tell us?
I do. There's a quote that one of my teachers has shared with me, and it just stays with me even when I'm working with clients in my personal life. The quote is, "The issue is not the issue. It's making it the issue. And so when you move through grief, know that you don't have to get stuck in the negative emotions that you call negative, that you can move through it and heal."
That's wonderful, Kathleen. Can you tell us again how to get hold of you and how to get hold of your book?
Absolutely. You can get a hold of me at CathleenElle.com. It's CathleenElle, or just go to Amazon and look up Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief, under Cathleen Elle. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, Kathleen, it's been wonderful. Such sacred words you have spoken, very meaningful for everyone who listens. Everyone has loss in their lives, and this is so helpful. Everyone, you've been listening to Cathleen Elle, author of Shattered Together, A Mother's Journey from Grief to Belief. Thank you for joining us. After the break, Neil will be giving his report from the spirit realm. Please come back and listen to that too. Thank you.
CrystalHealingTechniques.com is the place to learn crystal healing, and there's even some free courses and certification. CrystalHealingTechniques.com has courses from beginner to advanced, and you'll learn from a master crystal healer. Explore new and unique material as you learn from the amazing award-winning textbook, The Complete Guide to Crystal Surgery. So discover the world of healing through crystals at CrystalHealingTechniques.com. Visit CrystalHealingTechniques.com or call 513-891-8062.
Hi there. Welcome back. You're listening to the Schapera Show, and I'm Neil, very pleased to be sharing with you my shamanic journeys to the spirit realm and reporting back on the guidance I received directly from the spirits. The purpose of the journey for today's show is to travel to the lower world and ask the spirits to please give me guidance around the question, what can we learn from history? I had a feeling that because this question has to do with history, has to do with the past, it would be fitting to travel to the lower world with the connotation of the past and history and rocks and fossils and layers buried and hidden. So I go into the tree that I used to access the portal for the lower world. I see the portal on the floor and melt through and find myself underneath in the dark. And I'm going down and down, and I'm getting a sense that not only am I going to the spirit realm of the lower world, but I might also actually be going back in time, because of the nature of the question that I'm taking on this journey. What can we learn from studying history? I'm still going down, and already, as if in answer to the point that I might have gone back in time, I see what I think might be pterodactyls, flying dinosaurs, and I can see volcanoes, all the kinds of things that I associate with the dinosaur age. I'm landing in a very green area, and the plant life here too I associate with those dinosaur times. Green, strong, spiky, sharp, a sort of a harsh green jungle. I know I need my spirit helpers of the lower world, so before I move anywhere, I call on them. And immediately the spirits give me a bit of guidance and advice. They say, don't make the same mistake twice. Look at history and try to discern where humans have made poor choices or bad decisions. As best we can, try and understand or analyze the past in terms of what mistakes were made. And similarly, one can learn from the successes of the past, and we can try to repeat those successes with the understanding that those successful acts did, of course, occur in a context. The spirits say that one of the things that characterizes history is suffering. Over and over, again and again, there has been suffering. The spirits say that that's one key way of assessing whether something was a mistake or not. Did it continue or add to suffering, or did it stop or reduce suffering? They say that if we look at history, we can try discern a plot or a point, like overall, why did things happen in the way they happened? What track or trajectory were people following? And the spirits say that very unfortunately, one of the tracks that humanity has followed is self-centered greed. They say that one only has to look at the school curriculum to get an idea of what our society values. Is any spirituality being taught? Is any morality and ethics being taught? Because that's going to influence history. If we don't teach spirituality, if we don't teach ethics and morality, we are actually creating a track or a trajectory towards a future of suffering. So that's a good way of looking at history, to see if one can understand it in terms of a breakdown or deficiency of morality and ethics. I ask the spirits if they can show me something from history that would be useful to know. And they show me a center of civilization in what is now Mexico City. This was the ancient capital of the Aztec Empire. There was a flourishing civilization, but one aspect of its destruction was conquest by the Spaniards. History is full of the conquistador, people coming in from far away to conquer, destroy, pillage, steal, and take over. So the spirits say we need to understand the conquistador mindset. What occurs in the upbringing, the home life, the education, and life experiences of somebody who turns into a conqueror. And in our education, in our exposure to morality and ethics and spirituality, children and all people should be groomed in the opposite direction. There were so many explorers in history, and they were motivated by adventure, but also by their own or their bosses or rulers' ambitions, for example, gaining new territory, new lands, getting treasure, crops, and slavery. And this could all be classified as greed. So history teaches us how greed is such a motivator for humans. And in addition, complicating matters, one also sees how sometimes things just do happen, things that are outside our control, like earthquakes, floods, famine, icebergs, asteroids, fires, plagues. Looking at history, we learn that generally speaking, there is not a long-term view that human societies take towards safeguarding their futures. There is short-term greed and short-term gains, short-term benefits. So the drums have changed and are calling me back. However, the spirits give me a little bit more final information, and they say that history teaches us that in general, human cultures just want to go on doing what they've always done and not make the big changes that could be extremely beneficial in the long term, but in the short term might, of course, require changes that are felt to be disruptive or might upset the status quo. History teaches us that we could voluntarily change to help secure a better future, or we could just wait for things to happen and then get big changes which we are not in any way prepared for. So studying history can help us be better prepared for an uncertain future. That is their bottom line. I thank the spirits for a wonderful journey, actually a profound journey with a lot of content. And I find my thread and make my way back up to the portal into the hollowed out tree and step out back into the middle world. So thank you. You've been listening to Neil of the Schapera Show, and a reminder that on our website you will see this journey that I've spoken today with more detail. So we have to go on our break now, and when we come back, Vivien will continue with messages from crystals.
If you like this program and you want to hear more of the Shaperas, then tune in to their YouTube channel called Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques. There's demos, meditations, interviews, and more on their YouTube channel, Crystal Surgery and Crystal Healing Techniques.
Hello and welcome back to the Schapera Show. Today I am talking to Faden quartz, which is a very particular quartz formation. I first encountered Faden quartz when I trained with Melody in the 1990s. Melody went to great lengths to enforce the correct pronunciation, quite insistently repeating R as in father, and getting annoyed with everyone for saying Faden instead of Faden. You can hear me laughing. This was somewhat amusing to me at the time, but it has worn thin because I now understand Melody's frustration as I try and teach my students the correct pronunciation to no avail. This is the thing of coming from South Africa and understanding the R sound better. So most Faden quartz comes in a small tabular crystal. A tabular crystal is also known as a tabby, and it's a flat crystal. And the distinguishing characteristic is the white Faden line, which is actually a gaseous tube inside the crystal. And this gaseous tube is a tunnel of connection. In Melody's class, we spent a lot of time using the Faden crystals to link us telepathically. A lengthy exercise because the class was rather big and everyone had to have their turn. Nowadays, I use my Faden crystals to link me to the etheric realm. Those of you who have seen my videos on YouTube will probably be familiar with the stunning wire-wrapped Faden crystal that you can see hanging around my neck and resting on my heart. This little beauty was a gift from my dear friend Ro, and it has developed a singular significance. I use this Faden to connect me to my son Aiden in the spirit realm. I don't really need a crystal to connect with Aiden because we are always connected and available to each other, but when I wear my Faden pendant, additional qualities become evident. The sense of Aiden's energy is amplified so that it feels like he is surrounding me, supporting me, and in Aiden's style, monitoring all proceedings. I feel safer. I feel less anxious. I feel more trusting that things will go right. I experience myself as more confident, more articulate, and more insightful. I find myself holding the crystal with my thumb at the back and my fingers resting on the front. This is both comfortable and comforting, and also energizing. I am not only connected to Aiden, but any spiritual being in the etheric realm. All I need to do is ask. Faden quartz has properties that are unique to this formation, and there is no substitute. Everyone interested in crystal healing should have at least one of these crystals. In my crystal healing work, I have multiple Faden quartz crystals, and I use each one in a different way. For example, I was lucky enough to acquire a very big Faden crystal. It is unusual for these crystals to be so large. I use this big Faden to connect community members when we are working communally in class or when holding a ceremony. I allocate a small crystal point to each class member, and I place these small points on top of the large Faden. This palpably builds the energy, giving a sense of togetherness in space, even though we are actually all spread out across the world. It gives me a kick every time to experience how the internet works so seamlessly with the etheric world, keeping us all connected through both space and time. When I ask my Faden crystals what message they want to share with you, it becomes apparent that one Faden is not at all the same as another. Each one has a personality and voice of its own. My pendant says, tell them that even though you can connect to the etheric realm without crystals, by just using intention, when you use a Faden, you are increasing the bandwidth and the strength of the connection. Well, that makes sense, considering what I already just said about how it affects me when I wear that Faden pendant. My community Faden says, tell them that Faden crystals communicate with each other, so you can strengthen the community effect by ensuring that each person in the community has their Faden available and primed to join in. The image that is coming into my head is pretty powerful. A network of Faden crystals spreading across the world, forming a web of connection. Sounds familiar. Again, just like the internet. Faden crystals are the airdrop system of the mineral kingdom. My pair of stress-draining Fadens say, tell them that you can use Fadens to connect people with each other, and that's an interpersonal connection. But you can also use Fadens to connect the chakras, the organs, the etheric tissue, the systems of an individual, and that's an intrapersonal connection. This sounds very useful in healing sessions, because that is what we are looking for, isn't it? Integrated functioning. And it's true. Everyone notices a flowing sensation when the Faden pair is applied in their session. How excellent. Well, there it is, the personalities of Faden quartz. Thank you for joining us here on the Schapera Show, where Vivien and Neil explore this big adventure called life. Please join us again next month. Thank you so much.